What if one admissions letter had changed the 20th century? In 1907, a young applicant walked up the stone steps of the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, dreaming of brushes and galleries. He left with a rejection that would echo through history, but the truth behind that moment isn't what most people think, and it reveals how talent, discipline, and luck collide in terrifying ways. Keep watching, because in the next few minutes you'll learn why he was rejected, what he did next, and the one piece of advice he ignored that might have altered everything. Welcome back to my channel, where we unpack big historical moments with clear facts and fresh angles. Today's video tackles a famous claim. Hitler was rejected from art school. Yes, it happened, but the context, the timing, and the consequences are often misunderstood. This is not a what-if fantasy story. It's a reality check that asks, how does a young striver's failure intersect with global catastrophe decades later? Here's the roadmap. First, we'll meet Hitler before politics, the teenager who sketched buildings with remarkable attention to detail. Then we'll walk you through how the Vienna Academy worked, why his portfolio didn't pass, and how 2 rejections, not just one, shaped his path. We'll move to his years in Vienna, selling postcards and living in men's hostels, to the World War I experience that hardened his worldview. Finally, we'll confront the myth. Could a single letter really change history, or is that too simple? In a minute, you'll hear the exact skill examiners said he lacked, and it wasn't the one you're thinking of. Section 1. The teenager with a sketchbook. Before he was a dictator, Hitler was a high school dropout with a stubborn streak and a head full of romantic dreams about being an artist. He sketched architecture, facades, arches, rooftops, with neat lines and careful perspective. He loved theater sets, grand buildings, and the look of old Europe. His drawings showed patience and craft, especially for structures. But here's the first twist. Good architectural drawing doesn't automatically make you a painter. The Academy wasn't selecting draftsmen, it was evaluating fine art potential. Composition, color, human figure, and expressive imagination. A disciplined eye for windows and cornices is not the same as the fluid anatomy of a living model. In the next section, we'll reveal the 2-step admissions system that tripped him up, and why human figures became the fatal hurdle. Section 2. How the Vienna Academy tested you. Admission to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts involved a preliminary portfolio review, followed by live drawing exams. Applicants had to demonstrate draftsmanship, composition, and, crucially, figure drawing, the human form from life. This wasn't optional. For painting, mastering anatomy was considered foundational. Imagine showing detailed cityscapes in a room full of charcoal studies of hands, torsos, and faces. The contrast would be stark. Hitler could draw buildings, but his figure work? Rigid, stiff, and underdeveloped. The Academy reportedly suggested that he consider architecture a field where his strengths in perspective and structure could actually shine, but that route required formal secondary education he hadn't completed. He ignored that advice. Coming up, why he didn't pivot to architecture even when the door was cracked open for him. Section 3. First rejection, 1907. In 1907, Hitler took his first shot. He traveled to Vienna and submitted his portfolio. The preliminary round separated hopefuls from contenders. While details vary in popular retellings, the outcome is consistent. He didn't get in. Around the same time, tragedy struck. His mother, Clara, died late that year. Grief, pride, and a refusal to return to a conventional school path converged. He doubled down on the artist identity instead of retooling for architecture. This is where the myth often compresses the story. It wasn't a single dramatic moment that condemned the future. It was a cluster of decisions layered over circumstance. No full secondary schooling, a narrow portfolio, and resistance to constructive advice. The next attempt is even more telling, and the feedback was specific. Section 4, Second Rejection, 1908, and the Architecture Advice. By 1908, he tried again. The message? Still no. Examiners reportedly noted that his architectural renderings were promising, but his painting potential was insufficient, particularly in figure drawing. They steered him toward architecture, which, to be fair, requires a different training pipeline: math, drafting, and formal education he hadn't completed. Rather than taking a remedial path, he drifted into a survival routine: postcards, small commissions, and cheap rooms. This is the counterfactual pivot everyone loves to debate. Had he gone back to finish school and pursued architecture, would he have designed buildings instead of overseeing destruction? We cannot know, but we do know this. Ignoring aligned advice kept him stuck in a niche where his skills didn't match the bar. In 60 seconds, we'll open the door to his Vienna years and the network of resentments that brewed there. Section 5. Vienna, poverty, postcards, and a hardening worldview. Vienna between 1908 and 1913 was both cosmopolitan and cruel to the poor. Hitler lived in men's hostels, sometimes on the edge of homelessness, painting watercolors of buildings and selling them to tourists or dealers. He learned how to copy quickly and market just enough to eat, but he didn't build the academic foundation the Academy had flagged. Instead, he nurtured grievances: resentment toward elites, bitterness about rejection, and a conspiratorial lens to explain his struggles. This period matters because it shows how personal failure can curdle into political rage when it meets the right condition. An empire under stress, social tensions, and a young man who preferred blame to discipline. He had a path he could have taken, architecture, but it required humility, study, and time. He chose to perform being an artist rather than become one through training. Next, the war that rewarded the traits art school penalized: discipline, hierarchy, and certainty. Section 6. World War I changes the channel. When World War I erupted, he found in the army what art school never gave him: structure, status, and a mission. The battlefield does not grade figure drawing, it rewards obedience and endurance. He served, was wounded, and emerged with a tighter, more absolutist worldview. The war didn't create his resentments, but it channeled them and gave him a uniformed identity that felt like validation after years of being invisible in Vienna. After the war, like many veterans in a shaken Germany, he encountered economic crisis, humiliation, and political volatility. He discovered he could do something the Academy never measured: speak to crowds, sketching not people but stories, drawing not faces but fears. His canvas became a population desperate for certainty. In the next minute, we'll dismantle the myth. Did one rejection cause a catastrophe, or is that folklore? Section 7. Myth versus reality. Did the letter make the monster? Let's be clear. No single admissions letter created the Holocaust or World War II. Reducing history to a cliché, if only the art school had said yes, ignores economics, ideology, propaganda, institutional collapse, and millions of individual choices. It also erases the agency of the person in question. He was not a passive marble statue shaped by a stamp from a registrar's office. He made choices, and those choices escalated to crimes on an unimaginable scale. But the art school rejections do reveal something crucial: misalignment. He was stubborn where he needed to be flexible, proud where he needed to be humble, and impatient in a craft that demands years. The Academy didn't miss a genius painter. It correctly identified that his strengths lay in structure, not figures, and pointed him to architecture, a domain that might have absorbed his obsessions in constructive rather than destructive ways. Stay for the final minute. We'll extract 3 lessons you can apply to your own life so a setback doesn't mutate into a life script. Section 8. What his art actually looked like. To be fair, some of his watercolors and ink drawings demonstrate competent perspective and neat lines. You can see a craftsman's eye for buildings, shadow, and vanishing points. But the human figure, expressive faces, accurate proportions, hands with weight and gesture, remains flat. Painters are judged by life, not by stone. The Academy wasn't hunting for perfect postcards. It wanted living forms and original vision. He was orderly, not imaginative; precise, not expressive. This disparity explains the admissions outcome better than any conspiracy. The portfolio he submitted advertised the wrong strengths for the program he wanted. The advice to pursue architecture was not an insult, it was a signpost. So, yes, Hitler was rejected from art school. twice. But the rejections didn't cause what came later. They exposed a mismatch and offered a course correction he refused. The lesson for us is not about fate, but about focus. Pursue the track that fits your strengths. Train your weaknesses deliberately and treat feedback as a lever. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe for more fact-first history, and share this with someone who's processing a setback. In our next video, we'll look at another misunderstood hinge moment from history and what it really tells us about choice and character.